welcome to Tequila in Your Tea. We are back today, episode 4, actually.
Woo-hoo.
We are going to talk about counsel. As you know from our last episode, we be going through it in this life. And for me, I think the only way you make it through is with good counsel. And that can mean a lot of things. Maybe it's a mentor in your life. Maybe for you go to therapy, you pay for that good counsel.
Yes.
But I do recognize the people or points in my life where if I had not been counseled, I probably would have spiraled or gone down a completely different path. So I today have invited someone who I actually am a fangirl of. This is Darcel Laurie. My bad.
Yes, true.
But you may know her as Darcel Laurie. She is not only a journalist who has turned into her own podcast owner, but she owns Moguls in Media. She has her podcast Mogul Talk with Darcel Laurie, and she has just been someone who has been good counsel in my life. So as someone who not only leads our Bible studies, she's just always been a good ear, someone who picks up the phone when I am questioning everything. So I wanted to invite her on as the superstar that she is, but also as just that person that I know if I need very good advice, I can always go to. So thank you so much for coming on here, deciding to talk with me, gracing us with your presence.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. It's an honor.
Honestly, when I thought about talking about counseling, of course, I thought of you, just how you've counseled me through certain things. But I also like to think about just how you got here. You've been through so much in your life. But it's been such a long journey that it's like, I find when people are like, oh, you're such a great counselor, you have it all together, they forget you've been through it.
Yeah.
And I know that there's certain moments in your life where you can kind of point out like, I could have gone a whole other way. So,
but by the grace of God.
I would say just tell us a little bit about your journey, like how you've gotten to this point now where you're not only able to counsel me, but students, all the things you do.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for having me. It's an honor. If we would talk about my entire story, we would be here all day.
Forever.
Forever, ever. But God is definitely, I feel like, the reason why God uses me in the space of counseling is because of the things that I've been through. I truly believe that like your test becomes your testimony. Going through abuse, abusive relationships, coming up in a home that was very loud and argumentative, even though on the outside it looked really picture perfect, 2-parent household, everything looked, aesthetically pleasing. But, my parents had issues and not wanting to, desiring not to repeat those same mistakes. Also forgiving my parents, giving them grace on the things that I witnessed growing up. And then just through relationships and all the drama that comes, with that. But then also all the blessings that God has taught me, like all along the way. So when I either counsel women or students, I get, where they're coming from in the sense of, hey, I am in, I've met women who say like, I've been in this abusive relationship. Can you, talk to me or speak to that? And like God always uses like what I've been through to really just bless others. And I just thank God that he's, removed me from situations, he's given me wisdom and even counsel around me to be able to speak life into me. And continuing to grind, continuing to push myself, when no one, was cheering me on, being, one of the first entrepreneurs in my family where that was like, hey, just do your 9 to 5, which most of like older generation, just do your 9 to 5 and get your retirement check, and deuces, you know? So it's kind of like where I wanted to break out of the box. Like I knew I was always created for something more. I know God was always going to use my voice. And I thought it was going to be through singing, but he did not give me that. So I was like, I guess it's going to be through speaking. And so God just really used all the things that I've been through and created this thing that, like, honestly, I'm really grateful for. I've always did everything I've done scared. Like people think, and I remember one of my friends giving me like a fearless bracelet. She's like, Darcel, I see you as fearless. And I'm like, I just do everything scared. I don't do. And then, I'm like, God, if you called me to it, you're going to figure it out. I will fake it till I make it or faith it till I make it. Either one, and so I just, as I started my own career in journalism, started going on red carpets, and I just copied people. And I was like, okay, they look like they know what they're doing. I have no idea, what I'm doing. So I just knew I wanted to tell stories, and I knew not only share my stories, but also give other people platforms to be able to speak their story and their truth and be able to glean from people. So as I did that, I started writing, I started podcasting. And now I'm here. So that's like the short version, but been through a lot of things, but grateful for what God has brought me to now.
I mean, just some of the things you shared with me, I know how arduous that journey has been. But at the same time, I'm grateful that you're here. If you had not gone through those things, if you had not been able to make it to this point, I wouldn't know you. I would not have the privilege of some of the knowledge that you dropped my way. So, giving God the glory that he brought you through it.
Yes.
Didn't leave you in it.
Yes.
But brought you through it so that way we can appreciate all the things that you share. So
yes.
I think in this particular time, I'll probably ask you, like, knowing some of your journey, were there certain people that that you would pick out as being good counsel for you, where if it wasn't for even just a moment, a phrase, a sentence where they really brought you to a point of recognizing something in your life, possibly altering your path, or just maybe you have somebody who's steady, always there, always picks up the phone. And there's probably a few, but maybe you can highlight what those people look like, because I think a lot of us don't know how to recognize good counsel.
Yeah, I had to recognize good counsel. I think being a strong woman of God, a lot of times, we believe this myth that we can deal with everything by ourselves. We think that, okay, I got my own back, and if I have, and I see you.
You don't have to call me out so much, okay? Okay?
I feel you. So I had to get to a place of, Darcel, you have to surrender to let people in. Because I felt like, okay, it's just me and Jesus. I'm good with that. I'm safe with that.
Yeah.
I had to feel safe letting other people in. Because I felt like when I've let other people in, they didn't encourage me the way that I wanted to be encouraged, or they didn't understand me, or they would diminish or dismiss what I was saying. And so I had to learn myself not only to be good counsel, but to get counseled and to receive that. And so I had to get to this space, where I surrendered, and God had to bring me, to the end of myself to say, Darcel, humble yourself and let someone in. There's so many people, so many of my friends that did not even know half of the stuff that I was going through, whether it was an abusive relationship, whether I was unemployed and couldn't pay rent for months and just scrapping, trying to find, working odd and end jobs. And they had no idea, because I just brought a happy face. And, I didn't let people into those parts of my life. I didn't want to be judged. But then as I started to surrender my will for God's will, which I think you have to come to the end of yourself in order to be counseled. You have to humble yourself, and you have to find a trusted space. And you have to also give people a chance to be there for you. Sometimes we're like, are they going to be a good fit to be? We don't know. And you have to be willing to take that risk and take that chance to be counseled. And so as I started to let my friends in, as I started to let certain friends, not all friends, because certain friends, you're still waiting for their deliverance. So I'm like really trusted friends that I feel like, because I feel like you have certain friends for certain things. And so having friends that were truly about God and being able to let them in and have them pray with me and have them just speak life into me or make me feel like I wasn't alone was the best thing that I could have done for myself, because oftentimes I suffered in silence. And so I had to learn to be counseled. And then I have those few friends. And then over time, it's funny because growing up, especially when I was a teenager, I was kind of all about my friends and mom, dad, bye, I'm out here, and I was involved in activities and things like that. So it was all about my friends. But as I got older, my mom truly became my best friend. And I found out a lot of the stuff that she's experienced, a lot of stuff that I've experienced. And so I'm like, oh, she has wisdom to bring to a situation. And so I would say that my mom has become good counsel for me. I do have selected friends that have become, good counsel for me. There's even times that I've shared things with you, which I think we really just be able to bounce off ideas and have
all the
that
vibes.
good, yes, all the vibes,
Yes.
all the things, and really be able to see things in like a healthy perspective.
Yeah.
So I would say there's several people in my life, but I had to grow to that,
I get that so much. It's for me, it's always so eerie how similar our stories are in a lot of ways. And I do think that's God at work. He puts the right people in your life to be either good counsel or just to be like that support.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to what you were saying, where, you just have to allow people in. And to an extent, I get the fear. I've allowed some people in that I promise you I should not have.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And it gets you in a space where like it's hard to contemplate, oh, I'm going to let somebody in again? Oh no, you got hoops to jump through, tests to pass, all the things. But at the same time, I can also speak to the idea that when you choose to walk a faith journey, if your journey is, okay, I'm going to try and believe in a creator that actually cared for me, that actually decided that I'm going to help you through this life. And it doesn't mean it's all going to be easy or roses.
He doesn't promise that.
But it's going to make you stronger. And I've set things up, all of it, for your good. Then it's like, okay, you've had to deal with some people that didn't necessarily need that close to you, or you've had to deal with some people that I've had to walk out your life. But I'm bringing this person to you for a purpose. And it means something when you can say, all right, I just need to take a minute and listen and be heard and take this risk, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to pay off. And it does, I will have to say, it takes not only a fine-tuned eye, but a fine-tuned heart. A lot of the times we're so hurt that it's hard to recognize when the person in front of you doesn't want anything from you. They're here because they're supposed to be. There's nothing like, oh, I need money from you, or I need to sign a deal with you, or I just need to suck your energy from you, because there's people like that too. But just, I don't want anything from you. I recognize something in you, and I'm here to give you encouragement, or I'm here to help you see it more clearly. And I'm at a spot in my life where I'm finding me being good counsel for people. And it's a new twist.
You are.
But it's a twist for me, because it's something that when you show up and you recognize that this person is like, oh, I've been there. So that's why you're here. That's why I'm here. So you don't have to go through this alone. That's it. Like, then you finally understand what it means to feel good counsel and be good counsel. And it's like, you are there to encourage, and not in the superficial way of like, oh, you look pretty today. Yes, it's necessary. but in the way of like, no, I see this in you.
Yeah.
No, I believe in this for you.
Mm-hmm.
You want to believe in it for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm going to help you see that so that way
Yeah.
you can do you. And I can be here to appreciate you for who you are. No gimmicks,
true.
no strings. And it's something that people are longing for, but afraid to look for because there are so many traps. So I know that our encouragement of each other can encourage someone else.
Absolutely.
To see just the open doors, the open windows in people that might already be in their lives.
Yeah.
And just like, oh, that person has been there for me. They haven't asked a lot of me.
Yeah.
Oh, they have been there to encourage me and recognize it.
I think also, too, you also have to sometimes know that people are in your life for a season.
Yeah.
Like sometimes there's going to be this great counsel to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I got tripped up in the past, like my younger self. Is where I thought, okay, if you're good counsel for me in this season, like we're going to be besties
forever and ever.
And you're going to see me through all my journeys, through all my ups and downs.
Mm-mm.
But sometimes that person is literally just meant for a season. They're meant to encourage you in that season, love you in that season. And then you may not see them again, or you may say hi and bye every now and again. And they were purposeful in that season. Doesn't mean they're bad if they left or if you guys parted ways. It's just learning that people sometimes are there for a season. Yeah. And I started to get hurt by that because I was like holding on to a past season and I didn't let go. And I was like, and also give people permission to grow and say, hey, we're not meant for each other. Giving myself permission to grow and say we're not meant for each other in the season. Or maybe there's a future season. We'll run, cross paths again.
Yeah.
So I think it's also that too. And I think another thing is, for me, I often thought I didn't want to share things because I didn't want to be judged. Because I felt like, oh, I know I have grace to not judge people.
Yes.
But I don't think people have grace to not judge me. I feel like, they're reading me or whatever.
Because sometimes it's true.
Sometimes it's true.
Sometimes it's true.
But sometimes people are also going through things that you do not. Like, they're going through silent battles too.
Yep.
And so when you start sharing your story, they're like, girl,
yes,
I am going through X, Y, and Z. And you're like, what? And then you're just like, and you have this moment where you're sharing stories and you realize, man, if I never would have opened my mouth and just took that risk to share, I would have never heard their story and they would have never heard mine. And then we would have never been able to encourage each other, you know? And so I had to learn that everybody, they can look like they have it all together on the outside, but people are fighting their own battles. Not every day is like this sad, day, right? We have days of joy, we have days of sorrow, but, knowing that no one is perfect. The only man who walked this earth that was perfect was Jesus. And even he experienced betrayals, sorrow, pain, hurt, right? All those things. And he lived he was perfect. And us imperfect beings have to, give people grace and let people try. I feel like I'm really good at encouraging people, and I feel like sometimes it's not reciprocated in the same way, but sometimes giving people grace to try in their own way.
Yeah.
And then, if they let you down, that's a lesson learned, right? Note taken, and you move right along.
Yeah.
But I think also just knowing that don't stop because you're, seeking out good counsel because you have this fear of being judged.
Yeah.
But just knowing like people are also going through things and you'll be surprised, what you can speak into their lives and what they can speak into your life.
I have found that the healing is in the transparency. The change is in the transparency. And not saying you should be open with everybody.
Right.
I have been around some people that I like to call energy vampires. I was definitely one of those types of people when I was younger, especially. I walked into a room, I was pouring out. Like, hi, how are you? And I genuinely meant it.
Right.
Like, I wanted to know what was going on in your life. Not so way I can take anything from you or expose you, but because I wanted to help every single person I encountered. And
which is a gift.
Yes, but it also comes from trauma.
Yeah. And you have to use discernment. Right?
Yes, but it was where you're fully open all the time. And it makes you a prime target for people who are not, who really are like coming for your energy and have no intention of pouring back into you. But when you do get to that space of discernment, like you were saying, you start to tune into the fact that like, no, there's something here for me and it's okay. If I say I need something from this space, from this relationship, from this conversation, it just doesn't have to be all about you. It should be that back and forth. And I do say that that's honestly why I'm doing this podcast. Like, I am not here for the actual podcast life. Let's be real. Okay. I didn't say like, I want to be a podcaster. Like you come from a background of journalism and things like that. No, ma'am. No, ma'am, I did not. Okay.
Well, I stumbled on journalism. Okay. My background technically was in psychology.
Makes sense.
I did not go to school for
Reading
journalism.
Me for filth.
I just one day woke up, said, I'm going to be a journalist. I have no idea how. And I just knew that I was going to fake it or faith it till I made it. And then I'm still trying to make it, right? In the sense of the podcast world. There's so much intimidation that comes with it. And you were right there as my support. I was like, Veena, I have no clue what I'm doing. Can you give me some guidance? You know, and because I genuinely knew I wanted to tell my story. I wanted to give other people a platform to tell their story. And I think your podcast as well is going to touch so many people's lives. And so, it's all the things of like prep and, you know, trying to get guests or share your story. But there's going to be so many people blessed by your transparency. And, you know, I think, as you know, I lead a Bible study, y'all. And I love Jesus.
Amen.
And I lead with transparency.
Yeah.
And as you know, who's been a part of my Bible study for a couple of years now, I will spill all the tea. Stay around long enough, and I will spill all the tea on myself because I think that people need to know and not feel like, I feel like a lot of people put leaders on pedestals.
Yeah.
And I am not one of those people. I will walk up to the president of the United States and say hi, especially if it was Barack, when it was Barack, you know. I feel like, you know, I will walk up to the president of the United States and introduce myself. I don't put leaders on pedestals. I respect leaders. And I think a lot of times I don't want people to see me as like, well, Darcel, you lead a Bible study. You're a leader in the church. You know, I can't really share with you like, no, I want people to know like, hey, this imperfect being God is using. And so that's the reason why I lead with transparency. Yeah. In knowing that, hey, maybe somebody may share my story to somebody else, but then I guess I kind of use like the Eminem tactic if you watched his movie. I forgot what was it called, the 8 Mile or something like that, and they're like battle rapping, and then he finally realizes the way I'm going to win this battle is I'm just going to share the tea, and then that gives the other person no ammunition to be able to spill it on me. So I kind of use that tactic of like, I'm going to spill the tea, and then if you want to share it, you can, but I've already spilled it. So you know, so I feel like just utilizing that is kind of what I do. I lead with transparency, also to ultimately help somebody else.
I think that's what it is for me. Yeah. I'm still not someone that will share everything in every space, but
this is true.
Especially with this podcast, it was like, oh, all these topics that I'm feeling inspired to talk about are going to air me out.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's like, they're all things that I wish someone was giving me more help and more tools with when I was really going through it, and how inaccessible it is at times. Like, okay, we're starting to have more people like on TikToks, like giving you therapy tips and all this stuff. But sometimes you really just need a safe space where people are willing to share that they've been through it too. They don't just have your answer, but like, oh, baby, we're going to keep you from going down the road I went, because it was a lot messier. Like, it don't have to be that messy, though. Like, let me just remind you that you are not alone. You've never been alone. But it's all right. You're going to get through this. I promise you. It won't look like me. It'll look better, hopefully. But you will get through this.
Yeah. And I think I realized how much I need counsel now that I'm married.
Marriage changed things.
It's funny because single Darcel, and you know, Darcel got married in her late 30s. So it was like this thing. And I have this heart for single women because I was single for so, I guess, according to society standards, so long.
Yeah.
And so my heart is always going to be for single women because I want them to know their worth, their value. And so that's like my heart now of where I want to counsel or continue to counsel is because I think we glamorize the other side, especially in church, where, and I know I'm veering off the topic a little bit, but you glamorize, marriage so much and you make it like this end goal, and in marriage you're like, hey, you haven't arrived until you got married. And I think we kind of attend a healthy church, but there's so many churches that are not healthy. It's like marriage is the end goal and then you're somebody. And even in the Bible, unless you were married, you were nobody. And so there's this like weight that single women carry, and maybe single men too. I can't speak for them. I'm not a man, but like single women, you carry this weight of like, oh my gosh, I want to get to this, destination.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's my duty and my responsibility to go back, because I've always told during my podcast, I don't believe in arriving to a space and then I shut off everything else. I always go up to go back. Like, to go help somebody else, make sure somebody else is good, tell them, hey, this is what the other side looks like. Who's that? Was it Caleb and in the Bible?
Okay, yeah.
When they climbed over the wall,
I was literally about to call you Harriet Tubman. Okay, like real talk.
I mean, she
I'm not on that. Ready? Let's go. I'm getting you out of this. Like,
I could be on that vibe too, but she was a different definition of fearless. Like that woman was amazing. But I think it was Caleb in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
That went over, see the enemy territory. They knew they were about to conquer the land of milk and honey, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I need to go peek over and see, okay, guys, this is what marriage is like. Mm-hmm. It's a lot. So please take your time. And, and make sure that I, the way that you got to intercede and pray and yield and be selfless is a whole other thing. And so, and just really like reach back. And I think now also being married, I also understand the married club too, where you're like, where wives stick together and husbands stick, because it's like, you do need to talk about like, girl, are you going through this too? Because this one's driving me crazy, And so you need this camaraderie as well. And so I had to yield a lot to counsel because of this unfamiliar territory that I'm in.
Yeah.
Single, I know that all day. Okay. Married, Darcel, I'm not well versed in. So I have to, in this season of my life, it's necessary in order for me to survive this season. I have to yield to counsel. So I think you also have to know when it comes to counsel that a lot of times, especially if you're walking in unfamiliar territory, or your God is calling you to higher heights, especially when I was a new entrepreneur, I was calling other entrepreneurs like, are you having this day too? And they're like, girl, I was about to be in tears a second ago.
Yes.
And then we'll talk each other through it. And it's like, so you have to yield to counsel and community and really just allow that process to happen because it's necessary and it's useful and it's purposeful. But like you ultimately said, it's finding that good counsel. And for me, I won't have any counsel that is not, Jesus centered, because I need someone who can pray with me and really give me what Jesus would say versus what the world would say, because, the world may give me a whole different option. Yeah. And I need to be able to have that, like, okay, this is what God says, this is what he calls you to, and remind me of my purpose and, all those things. So
I think it's funny because just based on the last two things you talked about, it shows how you receive counsel, but like how it varies, because as you're saying that, you need counsel for marriage, and of course that's obviously a necessity, but I've gotten good counsel in my marriage as well. There are times where I had to not only just kind of like take a back seat, not necessarily that, but where I have had to usually in my single life pull myself out of something.
Yeah.
And now I'm in a spot where like I have a partner who's like, I can see the day that you're having.
Yeah.
I can help pull you up out of this. And how he can so easily give me the best counsel, and within like 30 seconds, it's like my whole day is like, you know what, I've been tripping.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for the reminder. I do not have to spiral today.
Yes.
I am in a good place. We're going to make this work. Like, we're going to make change. And to know that you have that good counsel with you. And not saying everyone has that.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I think you know that you're with a partner.
Too.
Yeah, yeah. But you know you're with a partner that you're kind of like fussing and fighting with at times. You have to evaluate, like, is this person going to be good for me long term? Not saying that you won't exchange times where you are the good counsel for them. You support each other through. But I find that my marriage has been a space where I've always felt safe enough to share a majority of the issues that I'm going through and find that good counsel and get good advice and say, okay, even if that advice is to get better advice from somewhere else. Yeah. Great. Know your limits. Know that you're not going to dictate my life, but that you can speak a word or do an encouraging thing that reminds me that, like, okay, we're good. Let's refocus. Let's recenter. This is your skill set. Operate in that skill set, even if it's not mine, even if it's not something that I'm comfortable with. Go ahead and do you. And knowing that you are seeking relationship, not just in a partner, but in every area of your life, even if it is just for a season, you do hope that you're finding good counsel. It's not just someone you can lean on, but that can actually help you see the solution, find the path. And then also speaking to, you know, the fact that you're saying for you, good counsel has always come from a church setting. For me, it has not. It has definitely been very much where God is like, you better listen to this message, not the messenger, where do not judge who I've sent to you because they're a hot mess today, but they're saying exactly what I need you to know. And having to sit back in myself and not necessarily judge, but not take it harshly, not just be like, there is no way you giving me advice today, not with your effed up life, not with this and this and
Definitely
that and this
don't
and
come from that perspective.
Exactly.
We're all called. Because
I know there's too many ways.
You already know.
We can go there.
Like Darcel was Club Darcel. Darcel was Party Darcel.
Yeah.
Darcel was out here dating and mixing and mingling and enjoying her life. Yeah. So I know I would never come from that perspective of like,
definitely not.
Yeah, because I was that girl. Like,
yes,
you know?
But it was
I'm
more
still
so
that
like
girl, but
even
in
when
a different
you
way.
were Club Darcel and not Church Darcel.
Yeah.
God would still send you to me to say something to me. And being in a space of just like, all right, God, is that you or not? Because when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter church, synagogue, wherever you're going. Yeah. If God is with you, there is something on the inside of you where if you are still and quiet, you can hear that confirmation of this is right or this is wrong for you. Yeah. What is right and wrong for other people is for other people, but for you, is this where you need to be? Is this who you need to talk to? Is this what you need to listen to? Because some people can give you great counsel. It's just not for your life. Yeah. And they will be able to prophesy or do the things, read the palms, whatever. But it's not for you. Right. So you have to
yeah, reading my palms.
You're like, these hands are for God. But that's what I'm saying. Like, people seek counsel in every shape and form from all different places. And you have to be able to discern, like really quiet yourself. And I'd be like, Holy Spirit of God, please help me today. Like, please send me to the good counsel. Put me in the right place. Put that person in my path. Because if I can't hear you and it's too noisy and there's too much in my head, put that right person in front of me. And 9 times out of 10, they will.
Yeah, sometimes it'll be a person walking by and just will drop, you know, you're standing because, you know, I used to work downtown for 5 years and in Center City, Philadelphia. And so you often, you know, you go to the food truck or you go here, you run across people all the time. And then they'll just like say something. You're like, oh my gosh, you know, that was really good. But it's passing knowledge, right? Yeah. counsel to me is more, I'm entrusting you
Mm-hmm.
with my story versus just speaking in casual conversation and you say something to me. I'm entrusting you with the deepest, darkest parts, the ugliest parts, the mess. And that's hard to do for me if you can't pray with me.
Yeah.
Because not that, I've been that girl that I'm partying till 3 a.m. and I'm getting up for church on Sunday morning. Like, I've been that girl too. And still, I feel like I gave good advice and good counsel in that season of my life.
Yeah.
But I also think as you grow to, in your life, I feel like you have to be wiser with whom you get your counsel from.
Yeah.
And who you let in, because it's your life,
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I also see the benefit of having not necessarily closure, but to me it would feel like closure to not only have someone like dig through your dirt with you, but like to pray with you.
Yeah.
Prayer is that confirmation that you're now accepting that next level for yourself, that you can now see beyond what you've discussed, and that you're entrusting greater powers and God himself to really step forward for you in that issue, because you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
But there have been times where I know God did not send that person to pray with me. They couldn't pray with me.
Mm-hmm.
But he's allowed them in their giftings, whether they're denying it or not, to see something for me.
Oh, for
and
sure.
I have to be responsible enough to take it in prayer to him afterwards. And it's knowing that both are valid and both are necessary in life.
Yeah.
You need people that you can go not only through the trenches with, but also walk that spiritual journey with, and know that you can trust them to not be here for any sort of weirdness or be able to just not try to use you or manipulate you. And I think that's hard for people. When you talk about a spiritual journey, now people are like, okay, religions and all this stuff, which one do I sign up for? And who's praying what prayer and what language? Like, it's not about that. It's about, if you know that you are trying to be something better in your life, that if you are pursuing change, wholeness, and healing, you're going to encounter something one day that really means something. It's not just a ritual. It's not just discipline or something that you show up to every Sunday or Saturday or mass or mosque or whatever. You're like, oh, I've encountered the real God. And now that I know there's something more than me, and I'm getting good counsel in this, I'm seeking someone who knows this just as much as I think I'm trying to know. That's where you're like, okay, let's be safe in this space. Let's dig through this. Who can I trust to then pray with me? And if you can't trust them, that you can take that information and take it over to another space and be able to pray yourself. So I just appreciate the way, all of the ways we are able to get that good counsel. And I mean, because I say this, like, some of them are family members where...
Is this true?
I love them. They love me. They have a bit of knowledge from me, and they have a bit of my story, but they still don't know. They still don't know.
Yeah, you take the meat and spit out the bones, as they say. Like, you are able to take bits and pieces from other people. But I also like what you said. There's something so important in not only in getting good counsel, is it just receiving from other people, but it's also sitting with yourself. And I love that you mentioned that, because there's, at some point, you have to make a decision, right? Is this right for me? Is this not right for me? Do I take this job? Do I not take this job? Do I move to this city or do I not move to this city? Do I buy this home? Do I marry this person? Do I not? At some point, you're going to have to realize people do not have the answer for you. You have to answer for it. You have to answer those questions for yourself, and you have to get quiet. You take the meat, you spit out the bones. You're seeking counsel and wisdom from different areas and different places, but then you have to sit yourself down. And say, what do you want out of your life? And then, if you have a relationship with God, ultimately, what is God calling me to? Because even good counsel, they can say, well, this sounds good, But ultimately, it's what does God want you to do?
Yeah.
And so, we only know in part, as what the Bible says. We only know in part, right? So we don't know the full story, and so God knows. He has that aerial view, right, where he can see the full picture. And we're trying to catch up to where he is, right? So it's
Catch up, ma'am.
ultimately, yes.
That's a little too
and
lofty.
We're gonna take the rest of our lives catching up. So it really takes, sitting with yourself, asking God, you and God, because he's the ultimate counselor.
Yeah.
Our Holy Spirit is the ultimate counselor, and to guide us and lead us and say, I need you to do this, and I need you to have peace with this. You don't need to ask another person. You don't need to seek out more information.
Yep.
I've confirmed this. I've given you confirmation in other ways, but now I need you to have peace with this. So it really just comes down to, a combination of seeking good counsel, but also knowing how to sit with yourself and God and just really figure that out too.
Yeah. I think as we're wrapping up on this episode, it's just an understanding that the best counsel is going to be first found within yourself. You're going to see it in other spaces. Obviously, you're going to get it from other people.
Yeah.
But one other guest that we had here, Julia, she was like, honestly, when you sit with yourself, you realize you know yourself way better than you think you do. And it's something about when you can call out your own mess.
Yeah.
Be like, now you playing.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Some of us are a little harsh on ourselves at times. But it's starting at that place of being willing to look at yourself and say, are you doing this right? Are you a mess right now? Are you somewhere in between? And you can't even receive counsel from someone else if you haven't started to look at yourself to say hey, I need counsel. I need help. I'm out here running these streets, acting a fool. Maybe I need someone else to step in and say something. And it's definitely a place where I'm hoping people can get to a little bit more, where instead of comparing themselves to what other people show on the outside, they're willing to sit with themselves inside and not judge harshly, but say hey, this isn't exactly where I want to be. Or I'm right there. I'm at the precipice and there's just something else I need.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. Is it ultimately the only way that I can find good counsel, or at least that I knew who I wanted to be in my circle speaking to me, is if I knew who I was first.
Hey.
Because identity is so important. People will mold you and shape you if you do not know who you are. And it's not who God called you to be. And they can have the best intentions, but ultimately you have to sit with yourself.
Yeah.
You have to sit. And for me, it was me and God. We sat and I looked at the mess that I had. I looked at myself. I cried it out. I prayed it out. I fasted it out. And I cried some more. And that ugly cry, that Janet Jackson ugly cry. It's I cried it
Janet,
out.
You're beautiful.
No,
I know.
From the movie,
but yeah.
But you have to ugly cry. You have to go through the things, and you have to be not afraid to look at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
Because we are all masterpieces in the making. God is moving pieces around, and he's doing all these things. But as I knew who I was, as I started to read books, and I started to say, and specifically Christian books, and I'll give a shout out to Teray Roberts, Sarah Jakes Roberts' husband. Wholeness really brought me through because I read, and of course Michael Todd too, but Wholeness, that book, I really dug deep. And as I dug deep, I knew what type of counsel I wanted.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I knew, okay, I know who I am. I know my broken areas. I know where I need to grow. And so another person couldn't tell me who I am. I already knew who I was. So all I needed was, hey, I have these broken areas. Are you able to speak life into those things?
Speak to who I am already. Not try to mold me or change me.
But if you don't know who you are and you're just seeking people and you're looking all over the place, that's a dangerous place to be too.
Yeah.
So you have to really sit with self And and I will say this, we cannot have this episode without advocating for therapy too.
Yeah.
A good therapist or a good psychologist is important too. There's nothing wrong with it. I know in the, the community of people of color, I think it's taboo. I think we're starting to get to a better place with it in society, but there is nothing wrong with going to therapy. A good therapist, because I've had some that are not so good, but
take your time, shop around.
It's like finding a man, right? You gotta shop around for the right therapist, and you and that person can really unpack. If you're saying, hey, I don't have any friends that I can, you guys are so blessed.
Counselors, pastors, all the
we're
things.
blessed to have good, people around us. Some people may say, I don't have anyone. Well, guess what? That therapist, that psychologist, that counselor could be there for you initially until you find. And then I also think it's just good maintenance, as you're growing and glowing through life. I think it's important, but really digging deep within self, not being afraid to look in the mirror and find out who you are so that other people don't have to tell you.
Amen. With that, I'm gonna end the episode on that, because for real, it's too important to me that people find good counsel. And you are so right. When you don't see it around you, you got to go looking for it. So I'll make sure to, in the comments, in the links, everything, to drop some additional resources for where you can seek some of that good counsel. Of course, it's not going to be a first time around thing. You're going to need to shop around, but knowing that therapy is such an important part, knowing that relationship is such an important part, you have to start somewhere, one step at a time. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Darcel.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I really appreciated this conversation so much. And
me too.
Also, shout out, thanks to Lyndä, our producer. I'm always going to shout her out because it's something about having someone here to help this process happen. So thank you again for joining us. And I hope that you are sipping your tea one sip at a time. Okay?